California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association. From the very beginning, it was a small, unassuming little house. Literally built from a mail-order kit, it was located in an agricultural part of our state, out in the middle of a citrus grove. It was home to a hard-working, God-fearing family who moved here from back east, and to them represented the beginnings of their California dream. And today, this little house and the family who called it home are indeed very much a part of California's gold. It was a big deal when it was dedicated back in 1990. In fact, 4 American presidents and their wives were in attendance. And today, the Richard Nixon Library and Birthplace in Yorba Linda is a very popular place. It's filled with all kinds of interesting exhibits about our 37th president, all the way from his early California days to the presidency. In fact, hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world visit the library each year. And their favorite place is the little farmhouse the Nixons called home. Located on exactly the same spot it was built back in 1913, this little wooden house offers a glimpse back in time. To give us a personal perspective on the house, we spent the afternoon with Julie Nixon Eisenhower, the youngest daughter of Richard and Pat Nixon. Julie shared with us not only the story of the little house, but of the family who lived there and called it home. You were telling me this is actually one of the most popular places in the entire library.
I can tell you it's the most popular thing we have here at the Nixon Library because everyone falls in love with this little house that my grandfather built from a kit. And Huell, I'm hoping that some of the viewers might be able to help us because we've done research and we know it's not a Sears Roebuck or Montgomery Ward kit, but my grandfather Nixon ordered this kit from a catalog and he put the house together.
Wait a minute, he literally built this from a mail order kit?
Yes, that's it. And so we haven't been able to document which one, so maybe it'll look familiar enough to some of the viewers.
And when this house was built, I've seen pictures. It was literally out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was an orange grove.
250 people lived in Yorba Linda, and my grandparents came here because they wanted to have an orange and lemon grove. So it was just this wild place, and in fact, there was a ditch of runoff of water from the Santa Ana River, and my grandmother was so scared that the little boys, there were 4 boys that lived here, were going to drown in the ditch. And of course they weren't supposed to swim in it, but my father told me they used to sneak out and swim in this ditch, which is right near the house.
Now this was just a little house, and this plays off of, well, here it is.
Yeah,
I was born in a house my father built.
That's how he starts his memoirs. I was born in a house my father built. He loved this place. When there was uncertainty after he left Washington that there would ever be a Nixon library, he used to say to Tricia and me, I don't care if there's not a library, just preserve the birthplace. You know, if we can preserve the birthplace. He just, you know, it was his roots and it was where he'd grown up.
Did he bring you here?
He did. When I was a little girl, we would come and drive by, and the caretaker of the Richard Nixon Elementary School lived here in the 1950s, and then the school closed. And then it was abandoned for a while, and we used to come here in the 70s when my father and mother were living in San Clemente, and we'd get in the car and we'd drive by and I'd hear the same old stories, but I was interested.
So you've heard a lot of these stories before, haven't you? He liked to talk about...
He did. He was proud of his roots, and he admired what his parents had kind of eked out. His dad was just only had a 6th grade education and totally self-made, and he was very proud of that.
Do you think when they lived in this house that they knew it was just a little house?
Well, you know, I think that they felt they had the good life. It was California. They raised all of their own vegetables. The only thing they had to buy really was meat. They had all this bounty around them. My grandmother
a beautiful
canned.
location.
She canned everything. We'll see in her pantry how she canned. And they felt blessed because they were in California, and they both came, well, my grandmother came from Indiana Quakers, and my grandfather from Ohio, so they felt they'd arrived in paradise out here.
Growing oranges,
Yes.
which was probably kind of a California dream in itself, to come to California and grow oranges.
Yeah. And I don't know why their lemon grove failed, but I do know that my grandmother worked in the packing plant, one of the lemon packing plants here in Yorba Linda. In fact, there's a picture that you have which shows the 2 big packing plants and then maybe 20 homes. I mean, it's just a tiny little place. That was it. And so I don't know the story. This is it.
Yorba Linda has changed, but the Nixon birthplace has not.
Absolutely.
And it's literally sitting on exactly the spot where it was built.
The only thing we did, in fact, this is a fun story. They had to lift it up to lay a new foundation so visitors could come in, because we've had 1.5 million visitors since we opened 10 years ago. So the architects designing the Nixon Library said to my dad, "Now, President Nixon, we think we should turn the birthplace so it's facing the reflecting pool." My father said, "No way. You lift that up and you put it right back down the way it was. It's going to be the way it was."
So it's the back door that's facing the library.
Right.
This is the way it's supposed to be.
He wanted it right here.
All right, we're going in the front door.
Okay. Here's one of our
Hi,
docents.
Huell Hauser, nice to meet you.
Glad to see you too.
Well, you've got all these people standing over here waiting to go in. People are fascinated by this little house, aren't they?
Definitely they are.
What is it about it that you think so captivates them?
Oh, I think it's because it was here when Richard Nixon was born, and it's still here, and it makes it living.
And Huell, this is the pepper tree Frank Nixon planted and the boys climbed. He planted that tree in 1912, the year before my dad was born. And one year we had a party for all of our docents, and it was springtime. And you know, I'm from the East, so I don't know any of these wonderful things out here in California. The fragrance from that pepper tree. Did you know they have a fragrance?
No.
It was just unbelievable. It must have been heavenly living here with that.
Well, it must have been wonderful smelling the citrus blossoms too, which were all around the house.
Yeah.
All right, let's go inside. We're going to go inside and see the house, which has been here since it was built from a catalog.
That's right. Well, here we
are in the house.
In the little house. All the living took place right here in this room. They had their meals here, and they'd sit by the fire. And my father's favorite thing to read when he was a young boy was the National Geographic. His Uncle Griffith Millhouse subscribed, and he'd borrow the issues. These are some of the old geographics, because it took him to a different place.
So he was interested in the world.
He was. But you know what's interesting? When he was growing up here, he could hear the train whistle at night, and he wanted to be a train engineer. He didn't think of politics. It wasn't until he got into, I think, junior high, he started thinking politics. He wanted to be a railroad man. That's
really?
Yeah, he heard the train whistle at night.
Now, is this furniture original?
This is the original.
How did it get saved?
What happened is that Hannah Nixon, my grandmother, died a few months before my dad declared for the presidency. And my Aunt Clara Jane had the foresight to save everything. Otherwise, we wouldn't have it.
Future presidential.
Because we have the high chair, we have the little tub they bathed in. I mean, we've got everything.
Are we going to see that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I hope so.
Now, what is this over here? Because I know this is significant.
This is significant because you're standing next to a person who's atonal, who mouths the words of songs. But my dad was so musical. And I didn't even know this till I came into the birthplace for the first time once the library opened. But not only did he play the piano and violin, which I knew. This is his piano that he learned on.
This is literally his piano.
This is a crown piano he learned on, and his Hannah played also. But he also played the clarinet and, according to legend, the accordion.
Really?
I can hardly believe that, but that's what they're told.
I've never seen any pictures or heard.
I haven't either, but this is the story. But it was a musical family, and he actually went off to live with one of my grandmother's brothers in order for a whole half year to study piano because they thought he
Really?
might become a concert pianist.
Did
but
he, was he really interested in music?
He really
I mean, this
was.
is something he thought he might do.
He said that later in life, he said one of his things he always wished he could have done was to conduct an orchestra. One of his dreams. Yeah.
Now this is...
The bed he was born in.
You're kidding.
No, right here. There were 4 Nixon boys who lived in this house. He's the only son who was born at home, and I'll tell you why. It was the coldest winter in a century in 1913, and the January 9th, the day my dad was born, was so cold that my grandmother was afraid to go to the hospital and afraid to go to her mother's house to get in a buggy in the cold.
Really?
Yes. So he was born at home, and after he was delivered, the doctor put him in a laundry basket to keep him warm, wrapped him up.
So
This is the bed.
This was the only bedroom in the house?
And then there's a bedroom upstairs where the 4 boys slept.
But basically...
This is it. Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. What's interesting, too, another thing I learned in knowing that you were coming today, the docent sent me all this information. They've done research. I didn't know my dad did the frames. He made the frames for those,
Look at this,
for the
Louie.
picture with him, his brother Don's in the tire, and then Dick, Harold, and Arthur are standing around it. And my dad made the frame. You know, I always thought he wasn't that good with his hands. But and then there's a wonderful poem that my grandmother had in every home she lived in called Mother's Boys. It's about being the mother of boys.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there were 4...
4 boys, and then a 5th son was born years later when they were living in Whittier.
Now, this was the dining room, I guess.
Yeah, this is where they would have their meals. At first there was kerosene in the house, and then they got electricity.
And this...
Yeah, this is a wonderful picture of all the boys at age 4. My dad's the second one in. He was the second born son, and those were the boys that lived in this house, except for Ed on the end.
Now the floors squeak a little bit. Is
Well,
that historically correct? I guess it is, isn't it?
The floor's original, and the only thing that is different is the foundation. This is hey, there's a good one. That's a good squeak. I like that. But,
And I've heard about the fireplace, that your grandfather made that?
yeah, he was quite a good bricklayer, and he did the fireplace. And a lovely story. When my mother and father started dating, my mother was living with her brothers in their home in Artesia, which is now Cerritos. She grew up on a truck farm in Artesia. And my grandfather came over to her house and put in a fireplace.
Really?
Yeah.
So he built fireplaces
For
around
fun.
the
Well, you
community.
know, it was something he could do.
Now, didn't I see a picture of him as a conductor or an engineer on
Yeah.
one of the old red cars? One of the
in
old...
the Pacific Electric.
Yeah.
He started out on the Columbus, Ohio rail line, and his fingers got frostbitten in a bitter winter, so he organized a strike, and he got the state legislature, his men, the strikers, got the state legislature to pass a law to put heaters for the conductors and the motormen, because they were suffering. And so he agitated. He was an agitator. He had a temper.
Do you think this might be where your dad got the idea of being on the train from his father?
I'm sure. And just the idea that he did always have this kind of wanderlust, wanting to travel and go places, and the train was the way to go when you're a little boy.
And he could hear the
He
train
could
from
hear
this
the
house.
Absolutely. He could hear the train at night, the train whistle. That's one of his biggest memories of growing up.
Now, I don't know where to go next. Is this, well, this is, I guess, the china cabinet?
We should go back to the bedroom.
This is your tour.
Because a lot of women, and some men too, are interested in the needle crafts. But this quilt is called the Friendship Quilt, and it dates from 1857. It was given to Hannah and Frank Nixon. And underneath each basket, that's quite a familiar quilt. I mean, I think it's replicated today, is the signature and date of the woman, the friend who gave it. And that's why it's called a Friendship Quilt.
Oh, wow.
And then the blanket's from Ohio, and it dates to 1837.
They brought this with them when they came out here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to...
The
we've
kitchen? Where's the high chair? It's supposed to be here, Huell. That's all I can tell you.
All right, we're going into the... Oh, what a little kitchen.
Yeah.
This is it right here.
This is it.
Now, was your grandmother a good cook?
Oh, she was a fabulous cook because after they left Yorba Linda, they went to Whittier and opened a gas station. And then they had a market, and my grandmother made the pies and cakes for the market. And my dad said that one of his memories of living here in this house was, well, he thought her angel food cake was the best thing she made. And she always went outside this door and stood in the air to beat with a wooden spoon the batter because that made it lighter.
Oh, wow.
So it was a ritual. She'd always step outside at the very end for the last bit.
This is the...
And look at the leather seat. Look at that beautiful tooled leather. I mean, no one would make it something like that today.
This
and of
was
course,
your dad's? Well, I guess it was all four boys
all four
used
boys.
the same high chair.
I can't believe it's not more scarred up.
Well, it's probably been refinished, don't you think?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
This is wonderful. It's obviously the original leather seat as well.
Yeah.
Now,
And
where had this been all these years?
Well,
Who saved
Nana.
this?
See, my Nana never threw anything out. And then, fortunately, Aunt Clara Jane, put everything in storage. She didn't even go through it, so that's even better. She didn't throw things out either. You know what's fun, too, is my grandmother had this White House cookbook when she lived here, and that dates 1909, the White House cookbook. So they were kind of interested in the White House back then.
Wow.
Yeah.
The stove.
The stove's not original, but we just tried to find one that was of the era, of the period.
But it would have looked pretty much...
It would have looked like this. This is all her things. These are all hers.
Really?
Yeah, the colander and the grater and all that. This is all hers.
All right, now we're going... I don't know where.
We're going to go see the pantry, the can. This is where she canned. And my grandfather Nixon's saddle. This was his saddle. And Nana did her canning in here. Here's the
You called your grandmother Nana?
Nana.
Did you ever know
Grandpa.
her?
I knew them both really very well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Nana I was 18 when Nana died and 8 years old when Grandpa died.
So you remember?
Oh, I
them
remember.
very
I remember,
well.
and I remember that poem, Mother's Boys, and all those. This is her meat grinder and all her stuff.
Look at this.
And this is the bathtub.
What do you mean?
Well, no, I don't know why they have seed bags in here. Are we supposed to be touching these artifacts?
I don't know.
But anyway,
we just did.
This was
the Nixon family bathtub.
Before they put in plumbing, which they did about 2 years after they lived here.
Look at
Yeah.
this.
You could lean back. Doesn't look too bad.
And this was just kind of a storage area for a pantry, a big pantry.
I think maybe some of your viewers will recognize some of these features, like these windows and all. That was part of the kit, but isn't it charming?
There probably, if it was made with a kit,
Yeah.
there are probably other houses like
this,
this
right?
around Southern California.
It'll
Wouldn't that be
it'll
interesting to
so-
find another house
so
just
fun.
like this one?
Yeah, but isn't this sunny and pretty? I mean, the windows. It's just, and the pretty lattice work here.
Yeah.
It's quite a. It wasn't just an ordinary little house. It had a lot of pretty features to it.
All right.
Now
I'm
this is
just,
Nana's sewing room.
Oh boy, the
Yeah.
rooms just keep getting
Yeah,
smaller.
I know. Back here, her. I don't know if this was originally hers, but I know the basket was hers.
So these
The
little
sewing
houses
basket.
would have had a sewing room. That's how important sewing was.
Isn't it interesting that they only had one bedroom for their 4 boys, but they would have the pantry because she had to do that, and they'd have the sewing room because she had to make the clothes. And,
Yeah.
But the bedrooms, okay, those guys can sleep together. My father said that they got along pretty well. Sometimes they fought.
Well, they were brothers.
They were
Come
brothers,
on.
yeah.
4 brothers
Right.
living in a little house.
Right. Huell. Now we're going to go up this little narrow staircase, and this is not open to the public because it's so narrow we can't take visitors up here, but you're in for a treat. This is my favorite room in the little house.
There's another room.
Another
hidden up
room,
here.
and it's only 16 inches wide, this staircase, so we'll go single file.
It is a narrow staircase.
It's narrow. Okay. Yeah, this really is narrow. Wow. Huell, here we are in the Nixon brothers' bedroom.
Oh boy.
4 little boys. You can't stand up straight. You had to be a short kid to live up here in the attic.
Wow.
This is the upstairs bedroom, and 4 boys slept in 2 double beds.
Your kid, all 4 boys slept up here.
It is, and what's so incredible about this is that if you go 1,500 miles east to Abilene, Kansas, and look at the Eisenhower Boyhood home where he grew up. There's a room upstairs with 2 little beds like this that the 4 Eisenhower brothers slept in. It's really uncanny.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
this could not be the room for a full-size adult.
No.
Because you can't even stand
no,
up here.
No, I'm 5'6" and I have on 2-inch heels, so I guess
Yeah.
it's about, it's
now,
not very high.
what was this over here?
Well, this is a little built-in desk, and, oh, this is fun. Look, the California State Series was one of their books.
Oh, wow.
Children's reader. And they've got a rock collection here.
Now, are these, you think these are original?
I know the shoes are, and I
Oh
know the
my
books are.
gosh.
Yeah.
Now, whose
Yeah.
little shoes were they?
I think they were my dad's.
Oh,
Yeah.
your
They're
aunt
pretty
did
stiff.
save everything,
Yes, she
didn't
did.
she?
But my grandmother, well, because they were so poor, they were very saving. And I remember in 1950, my parents were campaigning for the Senate, and Nana stayed with us. And she decided to surprise my mother with getting Trisha's and my baby shoes bronzed. So my mother came home and she was so upset because Nana was so saving. I had worn out my shoe and Nana had taken it to a tailor, and there was this huge seam, you know, this sewn up big line. She got that shoe bronzed. My mother died. She never liked the shoe because she wanted her little girl to have a nice new shoe, but she saved these little beat up shoes. So
Now, this would have been the room that your dad would have been in at night and heard the far-off sound of the train whistle.
The train
that
whistling in the
got
night.
his
yeah.
mind thinking
And
of...
he had a beautiful view out here. I'm sure he saw the lemon grove and the orange grove
Yeah.
and just all the wild land that was around them.
Yeah. Now, did your dad ever bring you up here
Oh, yes.
and tell you stories?
Yes, he brought us up here, and he also brought his 2 grandsons up here. My son was 9, and I think Trisha's son was about 10 when this place opened 10 years ago. And they just couldn't believe it. You know, today kids rarely share rooms, or if they share a room, it's one other sibling. But,
so he would have brought them
he
up
brought
here.
them up here, yeah.
Told them the stories
Yeah.
of
He was-
his early days here.
He just cherished all the memories. He was very proud of it. And it
Does
was
your
the fun.
son remember that?
Oh yes,
I
yes.
mean-
He remembers coming up here with Ba. He called my father Ba, and they came up here. And the only thing about that, the girls, the 2 granddaughters, were a little miffed. They weren't invited up here. I had to explain. Well, Ba was reliving his childhood with his brothers. He didn't even think to bring the girls up because he adored the girls, the granddaughters, but he only brought the boys up. It didn't go over well.
All right, we're back in the living room. Now, you know, this really, I was thinking it had been described to me as a small house. It is kind of small, but this is a nice size room.
It is nice. It is nice. In fact, the newer homes, it's about the size of a new living room, and you'd have maybe a larger family room today, but no, this is a nice size.
And because this was the room, the
Yeah.
family would have literally lived in this room.
They
This was
did.
a living room.
They did the boys did their studying at the table, and my father, you said he used to lie down next to the fire. He loved a fire and read. We're about to leave, and I have to show you this poem that I wrote in the 6th grade, and you can see well, actually, it's the 7th grade because it says 7. I'd forgotten. But it says, this is the teacher wrote, do send a copy of this poem to your grandmother. And so it's called A Beauty, and it's about my Nana. She is breakers in coral and white mountain laurel, as constant as hills and as sweet as a rose. She is midsummer meadows and cool mountain shadows, the dream of a child and the peace of repose. She is soft April showers and wild tropic flowers, a cool mountain stream and a Christmas snow. Her manner of sweetness portrays life's completeness. She's my Nana, I ought to know. It's pretty bad as I read it out loud, actually.
No,
but it is 7th grade, and I got an A. See that red A? But my grandparents, Nixon, who built this little house, they were terrific, and they were great Californians.
Well, as we leave the house, the house is literally full of stories.
It is, and my dad liked to reminisce back about it, and you know, they were poor, but he liked to quote Eisenhower's famous words: "We were poor, but the glory of it is that we didn't know it."
Yeah.
They didn't know it. I mean, they walked barefoot to school because everybody walked barefoot to school, and you saved your shoes for the winter and for Sundays, and they just. And here's another view, Huell, of the beautiful fireplace my grandfather put in.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice?
Wow. It's
And
withstood
here's
time
the boys.
very
Here
well.
are the boys' window up there, where they used to have the pillow fights.
Would he
There was-
tell lots of, would your dad like
Yeah.
to, in the private moments that the family had together, would he like to
He liked,
tell these stories?
yeah, and again, he liked to bring us out here, and really there wasn't a lot to see for many years. We never could get inside the house, so it wasn't as much fun.
It was boarded up.
Yeah, so but we got in the car and we'd come out and look at the birthplace, and he wanted to see it. He wanted to kind of like go back to the roots. It was that basic for him, I think.
Why do you think he wanted to bring you all here so many times? Why do you think he talks so much about this place?
One of the things I disagree with on that's written about Richard Nixon is he was from California, so he was rootless. That's a line that a lot of historians take. That's not the way it was at all. He was from California and he had tremendous roots here.
California roots.
California roots, and he was proud of them. He was proud that he could pick the best vegetables for the store, and later in life, he still did all the vegetable and fruit shopping for us.
What do you mean?
Well, he would go to the market when my parents were living outside of the White House years. He would go to the market once a week and choose the good stuff because he was a Californian. He knew what was good, and he used to choose the vegetables for the Nixon market in Whittier, and he continued that as a boy, right?
Wow.
So he would keep going back.
Well, the chimes are ringing.
I know, we don't want you to leave.
We have reached a very poignant place because your parents are buried here.
That's right.
And the poignancy of it is that...
Just a few steps
yeah.
from the birthplace. And it's, I'm just so glad that the library ended up being here because this is where he came from.
Yeah.
And now he's back again.
For my brothers and me, life here in Yorba Linda would be considered hard today. But as I look back, it was a very happy time. We lived in this house until I was 9 years old, when we moved to Whittier, a town founded by Quakers. When he announced his candidacy for the presidency in his hometown of Abilene, Kansas, General Eisenhower said, "We were poor, but the glory of it was that we never knew it." I think my brothers and I would say the same about our lives in Yorba Linda. I feel fortunate that we spent those years in this house, which made up in love for what it lacked in size.
Hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed our visit to the Richard Nixon Library and Birthplace in Yorba Linda with Julie Nixon Eisenhower. If you'd like to go on this adventure again or share it with family or friends, or perhaps donate a copy to your local school or library, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.